Hey folks, how you guys doing? Hope you're all having a great day today. I feel like my voice is already hoarse, or it sounds like I'm struggling to speak because I've spoken so much already. I've tried to record this video so many times, but I am so easily distracted with everything going on. Like this kid in my walking by, looks like he's pushing his bicycle because it's got a flat tire. My wife is on the porch of my shop, swinging in my hammock, which is right through my window in my peripheral vision right now, and I can see that. And this is distracting. I keep thinking that's a fly on my hat because I used to do this a lot, but I switched away from it when Rode came out with them little bitty square microphones that I clipped on my shirt right here. But I stopped doing that because then it started to flip like this, and then it would get muffled against my skin, and I didn't know it, and then I'd ruin a bunch of audio and a bunch of shots. And now I'm putting it back on my hat, and I'm not used to that, so it looks like a fly, and I can see it. Anyway, I'm distracted. I've only got 5 things to talk about on my list, but I'm sure I can ramble and make this a stupid long video. So first thing up is the Walnut slab table, then checking the box for a lot of firsts for me, and then a common question about one process during that table, a cost breakdown of the table, more like how much profit it was, not a complete cost breakdown, and then also a 5.5 hand plane. So first up, the walnut table that we just completed. I say we. It was me, myself, and I, and then Jeremy completed a walnut slab table, book-matched slab table. And yeah, it was a really simple project. If you think about it, it's just 2 pieces of wood glued together, one joint, glue them together, slap some legs on the bottom. It was a really simple project with a decent profit margin. So there's a business opportunity there for the people who haven't already thought about it, I guess you could say. So a lot of firsts for me on that project. First time, and none of this is like groundbreaking or just like a tremendous accomplishment by any means. It's simply just checking the boxes. So first time I've completed a project that incorporated live edge. Nothing major, but just checking the box. First time using slabs as the actual project rather than using the slabs to get dimensional lumber to create a project. First time doing that. First time using the metal table legs, which was kind of weird, but real quick, I should have said it the other way around. First time making a project that somebody else designed, somebody else did all of the prep work. I simply just showed up for work, basically, and just executed some basic woodworking tasks, right? So I didn't do any of the prep work, didn't do any of the picking out of hardware, picking out of materials. Jeremy showed up with those legs, so first time using those table legs, and to be completely honest with you, I saw those table legs, and the first thing I thought of was like, those are gonna rack, right? I just mentally can't get over the fact that those table leg designs are structurally solid. And they are, right? So I see these metal legs on a table with no diagonal bracing along its length, and I'm like, that's got to rack. It's got to sway a little bit. We got the table done, bolted the legs on, put some furniture pads on the bottom of it, flipped it over, and it doesn't rack. It doesn't sway. It was really solid as my dining table is right now. So, don't judge a book by its cover. That was kind of eye-opening for me because I had a preconceived notion of how something was going to react without having any experience with it. So I was a little surprised. That caught me off guard. Let's see. First time. Also, this is the first large project that I used basically hardly any of my major tools in the shop. So I did not use my table saw, I did not use my router table, did not use my bandsaw, did not use my jointer or my planer or my miter saw or my my nice workbench or anything. I used a CNC machine, assembly table, and a couple plug-in-the-wall hand tools, power tools. Technically, those are called power tools, right? If you plug in the wall, like at the Biscuit Joiner, that's a power tool. It seems like it's a hand tool to me because I'm using it with my hands. It's a powered hand tool. Whatever. Speaking of a hand tool, powered hand tool, the Biscuit Joiner. Common question was, this was just one of the comments, rather surprised at how close you cut the biscuit slots to the top surface, and then it appears that you did not glue them in. Can you explain the reasoning for that? I always want to learn more. That's a good question. So 2 things there. Why did I not glue in the biscuits, right? So I don't see a need to. The biscuits are not adding any strength, any structural strength. They're simply there for alignment. That big glue seam that's going to be formed where the two slabs meet, that seam will be stronger than the wood itself, with or without biscuits. The biscuits are there literally to align things. You can glue them in if you want. I don't like to, because sometimes that can cause the biscuit to telegraph through the surface visually, not physically, visually telegraph through the surface. If you put it close to the reference face, so yeah, the reference face, that wood, the biscuit, as it holds the moisture of the glue, the wood around it can also absorb some of that moisture, and that's where you get the telegraphing through. It's the wood around the biscuit absorbing the glue moisture and then swelling up. So visually, you can look at that seam and see there's a biscuit, there's a biscuit, there's a biscuit, there's a biscuit. Sometimes if you apply glue to the biscuit and if you have that close enough to the surface. So that's why I did not glue them in. As far as their position vertically on that edge, on that face, away from the top reference face. So if we back up a little bit, the process before that was to flatten one face of the slabs on the CNC, flip it upside down so the new flat face is referencing off of the spoil board, and then use that as a reference to cut a perfectly 90-degree edge, or another face, 90 degrees for them to be glued back together. And all that was done on the bottom side of those slabs so that I could glue it together. And then once it was glued together, then I wanted to flatten the top as a whole. So when we brought them back over to the assembly table and flipped them back over to cut the biscuits, biscuit slots, we were referencing off of the bottom side. So I wanted them to be close to the bottom side rather than the other side, because I wasn't sure how much material I still had to remove. We still had to remove from what would eventually be the top side. So at that point, just put them close to the bottom, and wherever they are, that's fine. You're never going to see them on the bottom side anyway, if they do telegraph, which they didn't. But that's the reasoning behind that. The vertical space, you don't have to get them dead center in the middle of a board. They're just simply there for alignment. And honestly, I didn't even adjust the height or the height distance on the fence of the biscuit joiner. I just, whatever it was off the shelf, I just used it. And actually, I don't think I've adjusted that in quite a long time. I keep it set up at a certain height so that you can use the biscuit joiner to create slots every now and then for tabletop hold down clips on apron rails, right? So if you're making a table that has 4 legs and the aprons, or however many legs and actual aprons or upper rails to a table, you can attach the top to those rails with tabletop hold-down clips, and you need a slot for that. So that's why I did what I did. Cost breakdown of the table. So not a complete cost breakdown. I know the wood itself it's like $10 a board foot because they were so wide for those slabs. And I purchased some of the offcuts. I purchased the offcuts. And then he purchased basically the amount of material he needed on the other side for the table because I got an idea to use the offcuts. But it was like $600 for those 2 slabs, those 2 book-matched slabs. And that was another thing. Like, wood's not cheap. And when you're trying to source something specific and only one person's got it, you either pony up the money or you don't buy or you don't do the project, right? So $600 for that, and when it was all said and done, all of the materials all together, $600 minus my little chunk of that, so I think I put in $100 or so towards the wood. When it was all said and done, all of the costs was between $800 and $900. I don't know the exact number because Jeremy did buy some paint. He actually painted those legs rather than buying the black ones. So we'll say $800 to $900 was the total cost. Let's just err on the side of it being more expensive. $900 for the total cost. It took us 3 physical days, but actually about 2 days of work to complete the table, and it sold for $1,800. So there's a $900 profit off of 2 days worth of labor. And you have to take into consideration a lot of other things like the shop upkeep and sanding pads. We didn't take into consideration the sanding discs, none of that. So there's a fair amount of profit, especially considering that really only one person could do that in 2 days, right? So not 2 consecutive days, because you want to get the glue seam done, get it all glued together. You want the epoxy to cure and all that stuff for a full, overnight. That was our game plan anyway. So basically, if the camera wasn't here, either myself or Jeremy, one person in the shop, could get that project done with all the planning done on the front end in, I would say, 2 complete working days, spread apart over 3 physical days. So the first day, you come in, you get the slabs rough cut, you flatten one side, you joint the edge, you cut the biscuits, you glue it together, do the prep work for the epoxy, fill all the holes, pour your epoxy, all that stuff. You can get all that done probably before noon, I would say. And then touch up here and there with the second layer of epoxy and all that stuff later on that day. So day 1's completed with only really about a half a day's of labor. The next day, come in and you finish prepping the rest of the, the next day you'd come in and you'd flatten the whole top surface. All the epoxy should be cured and all that. And then you flip it over, you cut your pocket holes for your legs, you cut it to final lengths, you take it off, you put in your C channel, you put that on there, take it off, do all of your sanding all the way around it, get it all sanded, and then spray shellac. So I sprayed 2 coats of shellac. You can probably get all of that done in another half of a day. And then the second actual work day, which would probably be day 3, you come in and prep the surface from the shellac, basically removing any dust nibs and all that, and then put your armor seal coat or your final top coat on there and build up a few coats throughout that day. So really 2 working days spread apart over 3 days. So that'll give you an idea about the labor cost. And like I said, one person can do it faster than him and I did it together. We were slowed down quite a bit by moving the camera and just 2 guys goofing off, really. Jeremy's a longtime friend of mine. I've known him for a couple decades now. And what else? We also had to, we weren't quite as prepared as what we should have been. I cannot stand stopping mid-project and having to go get something. That drives me nuts, and I do it way, way more frequently than what I care to admit. It's just stupid oversight of one process or one piece of hardware or something. We completely forgot about the C channel before building this, and then got to a point where, crap, we need C channel. So then we went and tried to source C channel in my local area, ended up driving around, spending way too much time getting it, and then we had to cut the slots in it and all that. So with the proper prep work, I would definitely say 2 working days, 3 physical days to get $900 worth of profit, which is pretty good, right? It's pretty good. I don't make stuff to sell, so I don't know how profitable other stuff is based upon time invested. I would say that's a pretty good profit. And then, especially when you're reinvesting into tools and machinery to make the process even faster, right? So that's pretty cool. You could get a CNC machine. I'm not trying to sell anybody on CNC machines, but just think about the concept there. You can get a CNC machine that does the vast majority of all the work necessary for these slab type tables, and then you could batch out a lot of them, assuming you could sell them and assuming you had the clients for them. It just sounds profitable to me. Next thing on the list is a 5.5 hand plane from Taylor Toolworks. So this is my best candidate for a budget hand plane, this particular brand. So I've tried a lot of different hand planes, and I'm looking for something to solve the budget plane question that has been asked since I've started using hand planes back in 2016 regularly on this channel. I had my first hand plane way before YouTube, but I started to really get interested into hand tools in 2016, the very beginning of it, when I built that workbench. And ooh, you see that pointing? Ooh, that was the fastest I've ever pointed to something looking through the monitor. Boom. Budget hand planes that don't suck, right? So budget and good are very rarely in the same sentence. And this is the closest thing that I've found to it. So I'm working on a kind of like a long-term video. When I got this about a month ago, and then using it on a couple projects, and then we'll let some more time go by to just, you know, see if my opinion changes or whatever before I release the video. But I wanted to find something that had very little setup, very little anything that you had to do to the plane itself, to where you could actually use it out of the box other than sharpening the blade. And this is a pretty good buy. So far, that's my opinion. And it's relatively inexpensive. This is a 5.5, and I think it was a little over $100. All of the edges are chamfered all the way around here. The sole is flat. There's no work that needs to be done to it. You just simply sharpen the blade out of the box. It's pretty cool. So I'm working on that long-term video. I don't know what, this week, what am I working on this week? I've got a couple different things going on. Someone's dropping off some big maple slabs to flatten on the CNC. Won't be any video on that, just an oddball little job that I'm doing for some weird reason. And then also I've got those offcuts from the walnut table that I want to make an end table with. I want to experiment with some interesting joinery. With that, I've got a gift box that I have to complete here soon out of walnut with exposed joinery and a little inlay on the top. That's basically it. End of the video. Nothing to say, because I said too much already. You guys take care, have a great day, and I'll talk to you in the next video.